Thanks for tuning in to Prime Sports NASCAR as we are back from our, what was it, 2 weeks off? 3 weeks off? 2.5?
2.5. Call it 2.5.
Something like that. So, and what a crazy way to go into the break with another NASCAR. I don't even know what to say anymore. With what took place in New Hampshire with Kyle Busch and Truex, the two favorites. And it's just one of those races, too, where you could just tell as the whole race was going on that if they did not wreck, the chances are that it's probably Kyle Busch, Martin Truex battling for the win. Almirola would have had a gutsy third-place finish, et cetera, et cetera. But, hey, you know what? Great for Aric Almirola. It's good to see that the sport gets, I mean, it's good for parity that you get a crazy win. But it was still just what happened at the beginning of the race. And you knew just having to listen to the analysts, too, because you know they're not going to rip NASCAR as usual. So it was just, it was funny just looking at the interview. It was nice that NASCAR had somebody there to talk right away. I don't know, but it's again, I don't understand these decisions. I don't get what they're doing. I wish I could be there when they're making these decisions because they're not telling us stuff. You get the feeling like behind the scenes, they're like pulling their hair out, yelling at somebody, and then coming on the air and acting like everything's, but I hope that's the way it's going. I don't want them to be thinking everything's okay because it's not.
You know, there's so many things that were wrong with NASCAR decisions. The beginning of that race, the start, the rain, they probably shouldn't have started to begin with. Then on top of that, when you get to the finish, what's 8 more laps, 7 more laps with the daylight? I mean, it's not going to get, it's a short track. It's only a mile long. 2 extra minutes isn't going to make the difference of safety at that point to be able to complete the 8 laps. So I'm not sure what they were thinking at the end there, but what it really reminded me of is a number of years ago, IndyCar was trying to get their footing back in the United States and trying to get things going again. And they had a really horrible time calling races and a lot of questionable decisions, a lot of inconsistencies that they battled through. And they ended up firing who was doing the races and hiring one person in particular to manage it and bring it all under control. And you had one point person that was there specifically to make consistent decisions from week to week to week. And it made a huge difference. And the thing that was so ironic about it is when Truex and Busch went off, it was the exact same situation in IndyCar when they were going through that period. There was I believe it was St. Petersburg. They started under wet. They never should have. It was too dangerous. Will Power was leading the race. He ended up crashing out. And then they stopped the race because he crashed out. And he had been complaining why we need to stop. I'm leading the race. We need to stop. It's too dangerous. He crashes. IndyCar calls red flag. He's out of the race. And he gave them the double middle fingers. And I actually bought a T-shirt of it because it was just so classic. Somebody made a brilliant design with it. But it's the exact same situation. And I could imagine Kyle Busch and Martin Truex both running down the pit road doing that exact same thing to NASCAR officials after that.
Yeah. I don't even know what we've had this. This is like the 10th or 15th thing that has happened this year that's just making it. It's not even bad luck. It's just. No. It's like almost every time they could make the right decision, they make the wrong decision.
Yeah, it's totally putting their foot in their mouth or banging their head on the wall or something. Just boneheaded moves left and right at the beginning and right at the end, unfortunately. And it certainly, it certainly jumbled up the standings.
Yes. Yeah. And we can actually take a look at the standings right now. Let's see what we have here. Let me go ahead and pop them up. There it is. So as we take a look at the standings, and I have not even looked at these for the past couple of weeks after what happened. I was like, you know what? It's almost good that there's no NASCAR for a couple of weeks. I wrapped up everything with all of the drivers' standings for our fantasy and everything. I was like, that's it. I don't want to even look at this sport for a couple of weeks after what happened. So, all right, Almirola now is in the playoffs. So there are 3 drivers that don't have wins. One of them is going to make the playoffs, and that's Denny Hamlin. The other two are Kevin Harvick and Tyler Reddick. So what's the scenario or likelihood that Kevin Harvick does not get into the playoffs? Does he need to have two drivers that have no wins outside the playoff standings, or just one?
He would need, where's Denny Hamlin? 874. So he would need two without a win from himself. There are 4 races remaining. So if Harvick isn't one of the ones that wins one of those 4 races and we get somebody below him in the points that hasn't won yet to win a race, he's going to be really close. As it stands right now, Tyler Reddick's a race and a half behind Harvick. Harvick would literally have to not finish, and Reddick would have to be, 1, 2, 3, somewhere around there. Not 1, but 2 or 3 to be able to catch him on points. And same thing for Austin Dillon. So the likelihood...
Yeah, Austin Dillon looked like he was in pretty decent shape the entire season until last week. 2 weeks ago.
He was. He had 2 weeks in a row where Kurt Busch knocked his way in, and then Eric Almirola knocked his way in, and that totally jumbled the entire picture, because it was shaping up to be a battle between Chris Buescher and Matt DiBenedetto and Ross Chastain. But week by week, each of those guys fall out, and at that point, they have to win at this point to be in those. But it's going to be really tight between teammates Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon going into this weekend. They're only 5 points apart. I don't think that if without multiple winners that are below Harvick in the standings, I don't think Harvick is in danger of going out.
No, doesn't look like it. It looks like it's Reddick versus Austin Dillon.
Yep.
Right? Unless somebody outside the playoffs wins.
Exactly right. And then all of those guys got to be hoping that they're one of the ones that pull off the surprise win. Yeah. Otherwise, it's basically over. You can seal the championship field or the playoff field a couple weeks early, maybe even.
Well, there are 4 races left. And as far as the schedule is concerned, let me see here. Let me pop up. Let's see, there's after the Glen, it's another road course at Indianapolis. So we've never been to this before. This Indianapolis Motor Speedway Brickyard road course, and then we have Daytona to end it. So Michigan's the only normal race. So you have 2 road courses and Daytona. Anything could happen, really. I mean, Daytona is the race where everything could happen. So if somebody steals a win in the next 2 weeks, then Kevin Harvick is going to sweat bullets in Daytona.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, unless you get some kind of weird weather event like we had at Circuit of the Americas, I don't think you're really going to be in store for a true surprise or true upset at either Watkins Glen or Indianapolis. Watkins Glen is a more technical circuit, a lot more elevation changes than Indianapolis. Indianapolis is more about your ability to outbrake your opponents into the tight corners and getting off of that. Watkins Glen is a momentum track. It's got off-camber corners, blind corners, so it's about the finesse on the throttle throughout the race. And you've seen from the results, the best drivers in the series rise to the top: Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, etc., Kyle Busch, Martin Truex. Michigan, again, more of the standard. I would expect that to be something similar to what we've seen throughout the rest of the season so far. And then, like you said, you come down to Daytona, and that's why they put Daytona there.
Love it.
Anything. It's the perfect way to end it. Maybe the only thing that might be equal to that, in my opinion, would be a Bristol race to end it, Bristol night race to end the regular season. But that's it. You got Bristol in the playoffs. But yeah, anything can happen at Daytona. So I think it's going to be Reddick and Dillon sweating it out at Daytona. But if things from a weather perspective wreak havoc, or you get any more bonehead decisions from NASCAR, then maybe Kevin Harvick will be on the bubble.
And there's really nothing else. There's no other drama going on as far as the rest of the standings, correct? I mean, I know they try to make it out to be... And I know it is important when you're talking about stage points and how it gets you ranked going into the postseason and so forth, but there really isn't a whole lot of drama left at this point besides Reddick and Dillon.
No, that's really it. And below Dillon, so there's a 5-point gap between Reddick and Dillon. Below Dillon is Chris Buescher, who's over 100 points, 120 points behind. That's 4 races. and we've got 4 races left. So he would have to be second or third every single week with Reddick and Dillon both basically each week. So it's done unless Reddick or below wins.
And at this point, the way this season has gone, you never know.
Very true.
So, all right. That is those are the standings right now. So let's talk about the race this week at Watkins Glen. And I know when we're talking about qualifying and the history, it's usually who the fastest drivers are because they've qualified actually. So when we talk about 28 of 37 all time have started in the top 7, that's 75%. That's a pretty dramatic percentage. I'm not sure any other track has a percentage like that. 21 of 37, which is 56%, have started in the top 2 rows. That's pretty intense. The farthest back anybody's ever won, is 18th. That's crazy that there hasn't been some fluky. I mean, that means Kyle Busch has no chance. So
false.
The last 10, 9 of the last 10 started in the top 3 rows. But again, I'm willing to give even like a Kyle Busch a little bit of a break because they didn't truly qualify with those numbers.
You got to throw that statistic for this track out the window this week. And the reason why is that there's not qualifying. As you said, it's going to be set by the formulaic method that NASCAR has been using all year. The only thing maybe that might be a variable for people to pay attention to this week is that they didn't race at Watkins Glen last year.
Yes.
So it's now 2 years since they've raced on the track. They will not have practice or qualifying. However, they have been racing here a very long time. They know the track very well. First couple laps, they'll get themselves settled and they'll be back to it, and they can just go back to their notebooks in terms of car setup. So I think despite the fact that you got Kyle Busch starting all the way back in 20th, he's still very much could be in play for the win.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's still a road course, and when you're way back in a road course, it's a lot harder because you've got to navigate all sorts of landmines. So there is an issue. There's no question about it. It's just not the same issue that we normally talk about. All right. There is only one driver that all 3 of us, Eric, who will be with me tomorrow to talk about the IndyCar race this weekend. Only one driver that we have all picked this week. Do you know who that is?
I'm going to guess Truex.
Correct. And that was my last pick too. I mean, I actually found money for Truex. I wasn't even looking to, but I had some extra money and I was like, well, with this extra money, instead of putting it more on some other drivers, I might as well put it on Truex. I mean, why would I not at 6-1? So we all have Truex. And a matter of fact, looking at that, it's well, really, I the investment though is with Chase Elliott with the 2 of you, and I completely understand because I was thinking one of 2 things: either I was going to just put it all on Chase Elliott, or I was going to do it the way I was going to do it, not touch Elliott and not touch Larson because he's also 4-1, and just kind of go with everybody else, and that's the way that I went. But you both put 60 of your 100 on Elliott, and why not? He's still right now the road course king. He's got the 2 wins and a runner-up in 3 road course races this year already. And who knows? He could probably win the next 2 races. It wouldn't shock anybody. And he won the last 2 races at Watkins Glen pretty impressively as well.
The only thing that he has to do, in my mind, is navigate those first couple of laps. When we were talking about Kyle Busch, when we were talking about not having qualifying, despite the fact that these guys that are really good road course racers and they've been really fast all season, despite the fact that they're starting deeper in the field, road courses are a great opportunity to move forward really, really quickly. You can make up 2-3 spots in one turn. So you will see Kyle Busch by the end of the first lap. He might be 10 spots further forward. You will see Chase Elliott probably 3 or 4 spots further forward than where he started, just because they're able to lop off a lot of time beating those guys under braking. The only thing that Chase Elliott, in my perspective, needs to navigate successfully is probably the first 5 laps and getting himself into that top 5 kind of group so that he can keep safe and avoid those landmines. If he's able to do that, I think he's going to be really tough to beat. And I think we saw that he, doing that and being successful in doing that can be a problem for him. I think it was Daytona where we all thought he was going to go out and dominate and ended up having trouble that just compounded throughout the day. So as long as he can keep his nose clean, I think he's a safe bet. But I think anybody who has any kind of wager on him is going to be gritting their teeth through at least the first 5 laps.
Yeah, I mean, what you want is for him to just, once he's in first, then it's over. You got to get to first somehow without avoiding any of those issues we're talking about. He gets to first, and the likelihood of him not maintaining that lead and winning is going to be. But now, is there any strategy differences we're going to see in this particular road course as far as, well, we're going to try to make it on these stops, or we're going to try to stop early? What are we going to see any of that?
I think you're going to see that from people like Kyle Busch that are a little bit further back. Chase Elliott's far enough forward that he's going to just try to race for position. But if for whatever reason Kyle Busch find himself, you have the stage breaks, so that's going to be an opportunity to catch up to the leaders that drive away from him. But if for whatever reason he's unable to make his way through traffic, I think you will start seeing those guys probably from about 15th position on back, maybe even a 12th position on back, starting to do a little bit of that gamesmanship, either stop early, get out on fresh tires, make up some ground, or try to stretch it out to the fuel, stretch out the fuel and your tires to the stage break to be able to do your pits under caution or your stops under caution so that you can make ground that way.
By the way, before I move on, is this the weekend that the Xfinity race is they're going to race with Sage Karam is going to race this weekend?
Yes, it is.
Where is that?
Yes,
again?
making debut. It's actually at Watkins Glen as well. They're all 3 series are at Watkins Glen.
Oh, they are. Okay, it's Watkins Glen.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay, I thought Eric said he was going to go. I haven't even talked to Eric in the last week or two. I could have sworn Eric said he was going to the race.
Might be possible. 2 states away, though New York is starting to lock down again.
Never mind. Kyle Larson is 4-1. Nobody took Larson, even though he has proven finally that he can win on the road courses this year, winning Sonoma, second at COA. But he's got 1 top 5 in his last 5. The hot Kyle Larson is gone. That's the main reason why. Look, chances are he'd probably be at least 3-1 if he was still hot. If not, somehow 2-1 with Elliott. But at 4-1, that's still too low of a number. And I'm guessing the same because nobody took him, for somebody that is just not as hot as he used to be.
Yeah, and he's only led 6 laps here at Watkins Glen. The thing that he has going for him this weekend is starting position. He's starting 4th, so on the second row. And he was in the race the last time NASCAR raced here. So he's got just as much equal footing as everybody else. He's in better machinery. I still don't know, how great he is on the road courses. I think he is extremely good. I don't know yet how he compares to Chase Elliott. At this point in my mind, I still think Chase Elliott's got the measure of him. Yeah. Kyle Larson's stats here at Watkins Glen, just in particular, his best finish was 4th in his debut in 2014, and he's only led 6 laps, and that was back in 2019, the last time we were here.
Yeah, he's been able to disprove all of the negative results from the other road course races going into this season, so now he just has to do the same at Watkins Glen. Maybe he will, but until he does it, because we all know that every road course is different. So, and because, like you said, we don't know if Kyle Larson is on par with Chase. Chase can do it anywhere. We don't know if Kyle's at that point yet, and he'll have to prove that on Sunday. Okay, Truex is next at 6-1, and you and I both have Truex and Kyle. Eric just went with Truex out of the 2. And again, Truex, we all went at 6-1. His only good finish this year on the road courses was third at Sonoma. So that was a little bit of an issue. Plus, he only has one top five in his last 6 coming in. So he's not hot. He only has one top 5 on the road courses this year. But like I said, for me, I had a little extra money. I thought at 6-1, I'm getting triple than Chase Elliott, a little bit more than Larson. And Truex second, and first in his last 3 at Watkins Glen.
It's really those 3 numbers that made me want to go with Truex. Like you said, I was a little bit hesitant looking at him this weekend just because of his performances on the road courses. He used to be so great. He was a Chase Elliott before Chase Elliott came along. But then looking back at Road America, he was 9th. He was 3rd at Atlanta. So he's got a little bit of momentum over the last couple of weeks. And he was also very quiet throughout the middle part of the season, throughout the summer months, heading up to this point in the season. So maybe he's starting to find a little bit more traction. Those 2 top 10 finishes in the last 3 races are 2 of his 11 total so far this year. So he had a bunch right at the beginning, went quiet, starting to get it back, and you're coming to a track where he's second, and first. I think that's a good combination for him, and he's starting inside the top 10.
Now, Kyle at 7-1, 5th at Sonoma, 3rd at ROA. He has a good history at Watkins Glen. He's got 6 top 5s, 2 wins. He's led over 247 laps, which is very good and impressive. And let's throw out the New Hampshire debacle. Prior to New Hampshire, his previous 7 results, he had an average of finish of 3.8. So that's how hot Kyle Busch was coming into New Hampshire. And I think he would have continued that at New Hampshire, but he just didn't get the chance. So I think he's a solid play. And we both went Kyle's way. Matter of fact, you have the most to gain if Kyle Busch wins this week.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer for me to go with Kyle Busch because he has so much momentum at his back. The only thing this weekend that is any kind of question is his starting position.
Yes.
We know he has speed. That's the carryover from New Hampshire. That's an extra penalty in addition to the boneheaded decision that cost him what probably could have been a win 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was at this point. But he's got to overcome that. So he's another one that's got to sweat through the first opening laps. He's going to move forward extremely quickly. He's just got to keep his car clean as he does so. And then depending on how quickly he's able to move through the top 10, I think we may see his team do some pit strategy to be able to help him leapfrog a couple cars. But it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Kyle Busch in the top 10 before the end of probably, I don't know, maybe even the first lap.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the thing is that I agree. I mean, I would have probably even invested a little bit more with the exception of being 20th and all of that. So that was the only thing. Other than that, I probably would have invested even myself a little bit more in Kyle. Maybe I would have took that Truex money and put it on Kyle. Instead, I decided to break even with both of them. But we'll see. Okay, so next up is Denny Hamlin. And you're done, by the way, with your picks because you put so much on Elliott and you put the rest on Truex and Kyle, so you're done. Eric and I both put money on Hamlin and Logano at 11-1 and 12-1. For me, with Hamlin, and it looks like Eric as well, it's almost like get your money back, break even with Hamlin. And that's kind of the way it is for me. It's just I'll put a little bit of money on him because he does have a good starting position. But he only has 2 top 5s in his last 10 on the season. You think maybe he's making some incremental gains, but I don't know. I mean, I'm still not sold because he's not leading enough laps. 3 top 5s in his last 4 at Watkins Glen, though, is really good, including the win in 2016. But he's only led 12 laps in his career at Watkins Glen. 10 of those came in the win in 2016. But 3rd at Daytona, 5th at ROA, and 11-1. Those are good odds.
The thing for me with Denny Hamlin, and I still think he's going to win before the end of the season. I just don't going to be. I still think he's
the whole season.
the whole season. I still think he's going to win. He may even do it in the last 4 here. The thing that concerns me about Denny Hamlin, though, is that he had a couple of races just before the break. If you look at the last 5 races, last time he led significant laps was at Pocono, and that was when he was about to win and ended up having to pit on the last lap for fuel. That happened to him twice, I think, in the last 5 races or prior to going to New Hampshire. So I wonder how much of that killed his momentum, or maybe not killed his momentum, but deflated him a little bit and put some frustration where he didn't need it. I think up until that point, he had been consistently building. He was leading, getting out there and leading laps. But just like you said, since then, he really hasn't. So I wonder how much that's contributing to him. And that's a concern for me. He's got to get over that. Maybe 2 weeks off can do that for him. I'll wait and see if he does come out swinging at Watkins Glen. You can rest assured he's going to be in my picks for the rest of the season. It's a matter of peaking at the right time. Hopefully he's doing it. I think he has the potential to do so.
That's right. Weren't you like picking him every week or something like that?
Yep.
Okay, so maybe this is the week to take him because you just went off of him.
Because I did not. Exactly
okay.
Right.
By the way, quick question: when they restart for the playoffs, how do they do? Starting lineup? Is it based on the standings?
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think they're still using
okay.
Just the ranking in terms of the where you stand in that top 12 in the standings is what changes.
That's interesting. Do you agree with that? That is especially out of Daytona.
So I do agree, actually. Okay. I don't agree with formulaic. I think we should be qualifying. We're past things. We can open up now. Let's qualify. Let's do practice. Yeah, aside from that, I do think that just because you happen to have made the playoffs shouldn't give you a leg up at the start of any race.
Well, look, I'd be really upset if I was a driver and I'm dominating or something, and I'm like top 3 in the standings, and then I go to Daytona. Or maybe the race before that, and I finish 10th, and then Daytona I finish 35th because I wreck, and then I got to start the first playoff race, at like 18th or 20th or something, So I'd be upset, but as fans, that's okay. We like to see it. So makes things a lot more interesting. Joey Logano, 12-1, and Logano's somebody I put a little bit of money on. Why not? 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in 3 out of the 4 road course races so far this season. I am concerned with finishing an average of 28th over his last 3 races at Watkins Glen, and he's only led 9 laps there, but he's got a good position up front, and that also makes a difference. And I think he's getting kind of close to another win.
Yeah, starting on the front row, and he was 4th in New Hampshire. He's got a couple top 10s in the last 5. I think he's starting to build, or had been starting to build, a little bit of momentum, and this starting spot certainly proves it, being able to be on the front row, and after 2 weeks off, that's a good thing for him. I would go for Joey Logano for sure, because I think this year has been kind of a standout year for him on the road courses. He's in my opinion, and the way that he's performed on the road courses this season, I think it's been more consistent and better than we've seen from him in his entire career up until this point. So we're on another road course. We got 2 back-to-back. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Joey Logano is in the mix for the win at one of the 2.
And when he won here in 2015, he led 1 lap. So,
the only one that matters.
Yes, that's it. And Eric, by the way, I mentioned he also had Hamlin and Logano, but that's it for Eric, with the exception of 1 long shot play. That's what happens when you invest 60% of your money on 1 driver. But that driver will probably wind up winning.
When it's 2-1, you have to.
And you're probably going to win anyway. So now, this leaves me with a whole bunch of other drivers, though, since I didn't go in that direction. And one of them is Christopher Bell. So now there's odds respectfully down to 15-1. And see what I do on whenever I have my odds picks weekly template I go over. And what I do is I have like at the bottom of it, I always keep the odds from the last race from a specific course. So if it's a road course, I'll take that, I'll move it down to the bottom, and I'll say, okay, the next time there's a road course, I'm going to copy and paste it first. I'm going to move it up to this week, and then I'm going to take up this week's odds, and I'm going to see how different they are from the last time they were at a road course. Same thing with Daytona, Talladega, same thing with all the other courses. So Bell was 35-1 the last time, just a few weeks ago, they were at a road course. But he had that second at ROA. And of course, we know he's in the playoffs because of the win at Daytona. But all of a sudden, second, eighth, and second over his last 3 races. So he gets off to a great start, then flatlines for like almost 2 months. And now he's hot again. And he's also runner-up in one of 2 Xfinity races at Watkins Glen, which helps considering he's never raced here in the Cup Series before, but a very respectable 15-1 number for Christopher Bell. But I still decided to put a few bucks on him.
Yeah, I think Christopher Bell is a great pick this week, starting inside the top 10, 2 second place finishes in the last 3 races, one of them being on Road America, which is another natural terrain road course. He's already got his road course win from the season earlier in the season, so he can get it done. And the tipping point for me choosing him would be that runner-up finish at Road America. Then when you just add on top of the fact that he probably 2 weeks ago could have won that race if they would have let it go the last 8 laps, at least been in a mix for fighting for the win with Almirola, with a solid second place finish, looking very, very sharp right now, which is perfect timing for him going into the playoffs as well.
Next up is Kurt Busch and William Byron at 20-1, and nobody put money on either driver, but Kurt Busch deserves a look at. He's had a few top 5s. He's led 65 laps in 19 races, which is okay. But he's also 4th at Daytona, 4th at ROA, and 6th at Sonoma. So he's been really good on the road courses this year. The only question is a second win in such a short, condensed period as far as the races are concerned. That's unlikely. Byron is forget it. I mean, he has just been awful on the road courses. 28th average on road course races and 21.5 average last 4 races this season. So William Byron, definitely not his week.
Yeah, I would avoid Byron just because 21st after starting on the front row at Watkins Glen in 2019. But yeah, all the statistics are a great reason to go against Byron. Kurt Busch, I think, has always been a really good road course racer, and he has wins on the road courses. He does a road course, Sonoma. Hasn't won at Watkins Glen, but he did get a runner-up there back in 2010, led some laps, like you said. I think he's very consistent. He's a top 10 guy on the road courses, but this entire season has been about them and that team not being up to the standards of Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske. So I think he's still fighting that uphill battle against the better machinery that is out there on the grid. He knows how to pull off wins, and he got it done. So he's in the playoffs. Great for him. But like you said, two wins in short order. It's going to take something special and probably pretty dramatic for him to be able to win this weekend.
I actually, if you look at out of all the drivers we talked about so far, I think he might be the best fantasy driver, sleeper driver to keep an eye on based on his not only his history but how he's performed this year. Because, like you said, sure, maybe he doesn't win, but another top 10, another top 6, we could definitely see that. So
I would anticipate if you're doing DraftKings or Fantasy Duel, I would expect his salary this week to be relatively low. He's starting in the 17th position. So, Kyle Busch's salary is going to be sky high because we know he's fast and he's starting deep in the field. But like you said, I think Kurt Busch is going to be the sleeper here, starting back almost as far as his brother, and he's probably going to be a top 10.
All right, now there's 2 drivers, 2 teammates at 25-1, and I both put a decent amount on both, and I have a good payday of $250 if either could win, and that's Ryan Blaine, not teammates, Ryan Blaney and Alex Bowman. But Blaney, I just felt that even though he hasn't been successful on the road courses this year, best finished 10th at Sonoma, he's picking things back up again. And even though every once in a while he's not getting help from the rest of his team, but in the last 5 races, he's been 5th, 6th, and 5th in 4 of them. So he's getting close. He was 4th in just 1 Xfinity Series race at this racetrack. And in 4 Cup races, he has 3 top 12s and a 5th place finish. Hasn't led a lot of laps there, but I just like the way that two things. I like the way that the groove he's in, and I like 25-1. And the same thing with Bowman, who has 3 top 10s in his last in the 4 road course races this year, 8 top 10s in his last 10 on the season, including 4 top 5s and 2 wins. He's finally showing consistency that we hadn't seen to that point. The only thing that concerns you is the 23rd average in 4 cup races at Watkins Glen, but this is a completely different Alex Bowman, sort of like what we were talking about with Kyle Larson before this year at these road course races. So, and I said it before, anytime I'm going to get Alex Bowman with a good number, I don't care what the situation, what the scenario, what it looks like, the history, I'm putting money on him.
Yeah, I agree. Between the two this weekend, I'm leaning towards Alex Bowman for the reasons that you said. I do think he's poised to have his best finish, or personal best finish at Watkins Glen this week. His best finish in the past 2 years, he finished in 18 and 19, finished 14th. So for me, he would be the choice over Blaney. Blaney, yes, he is on a much better path than he has been all season. Top 5 kind of guy right now, especially. Put him on Michigan and I'd be choosing him. But the fact that we're going to a road course, he just hasn't proved. I know he's got the win from Charlotte, but to this point on the road courses, he just hasn't proven for me that he's got more than a Kurt Busch, kind of a top 10. Maybe you scratch out a win here and there. I think this weekend's going to be pretty difficult for him, but still, I think he's a top 10 contender for sure.
Well, the main thing is he's got good starting position. So
yeah, absolutely.
Got to take advantage of that. Then you have a 30-1 Harvick and Kozlowski. Now, Harvick has a win in 06. He's led 66 laps in 19 races, so similar to Kurt Busch. But he's been averaged 28th over his last 3 road course races this year. That's not good. And Kevin Harvick is still just not Kevin Harvick. You know, it's interesting. Remember in the preseason, we were talking about Harvick and Hamlin? And whether or not they would have the same kind of season. It's still early, but it's crazy that maybe neither one of these guys will make the final 8, which you just never would have even considered that reality. But it just shows you that there's that much more parity in the sport, which is kind of a good thing. But anyway, Kevin Harvick looking to get a run going like Hamlin. At least Hamlin had one early in the season. Harvick just hasn't had one yet. Kozlowski, though, I put some decent money on again. I had money on him the last time out at New Hampshire. He was looking good there for a while and then faded late, but still finished, pretty strong, 3rd place. He was 5th at Daytona. That's his only good result on the road courses. But he has 3 runner-ups. They happened all in succession, 11, 12, and 13 at this racetrack. And he's led over 114 laps. So he's got some success. I like the way he's been racing a little bit lately. I think he's starting to, matter of fact, I think the whole Penske team is starting to look like maybe they're about to go on a run.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The only problem I have with Kozlowski this weekend is the fact that he's starting from pole. So I think he's going to go out and he's going to lead early laps. I think you put him in 5th position, flip-flop spots with him and Harvick. I think I'd be more... a little bit more on his side. Still, he's got, like you said, exact same thing for the last guys we talked about. If he's able to capitalize on his great starting position, not make any mistakes on pit road, I think he's going to be in store for certainly a top 5 kind of day. And if things go his way, he could be in store for the win. He's not the greatest road course driver, but he's not horrible either. Kevin Harvick's a little bit better on the road courses for me. Starting 5th, he's got a good position. But like you said, he's been, we need Kevin Harvick to lead laps. He hasn't really led laps. I mean, he did 66 at New Hampshire, but before that, he's been basically nowhere. He's been kind of hovering around the top 10, middle of the top 10. He's got to get into the top 5. He's got to get into the top 3, and he's got to be winning or leading laps and winning races. The playoffs are four races away. I can't believe we're at this point. And I know we were here before. Eric brought up the excellent point. I think it was last time we were on with him that Harvick didn't win a race the year they won his last championship until the playoffs. Could happen again. The likelihood of it happening again is very remote, though. I'd like to see a lot more from Kevin Harvick, and that's as tough as it is. It's just for him to take those three positions, 5 positions further forward consistently each week. That's what I need to see out of him. But yeah, I flip of the coin for both of them for me. The only takeaway from Kozlowski is the fact that he's starting on pole.
That's a bad thing. Yeah. Well, look, it's not a bad week, actually, if you're thinking about taking the 3 Penske drivers in a road
Agreed.
course situation. This is probably
Agreed.
the best chance we're ever going to get. Just go, okay, I'm just taking the Penske drivers on this road course this week.
Totally agree.
And the odds are pretty good when you're getting 25 to 1 on Blaney and 30 to 1 on Kozlowski. And yet they're all in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Those are pretty big odds. Okay.
And you said they're coming on right as the playoffs hit. So if they can keep that momentum going, keep it going through the break, get off to a good start here this weekend. Final 4, here they come.
And then 40 to 1, I put money on both Chastain and Reddick. Chastain definitely because of he's 7th or better in 3 road course races this year, including a 4th. First time he's racing here. He's raced 5 Xfinity races here. Not the results you're looking for, but still, it's all about what he's doing this year on the road course races. And it's coming off an 8th at New Hampshire as well. So he's dialed up as best as he could be dialed up on the season. Ross Chastain. Reddick is consistently been pretty solid all year, and he's now even picking things up a little bit more. So that's why he's right there. He might be able to get into the playoffs without a win. He has finishes of 11th and 5th in the Xfinity Series. Hasn't raced in the Cup Series. 2 top 10s on the road courses so far this season.
Yep, I think Reddick's definitely one to keep an eye on from a fantasy perspective. He's definitely got momentum on his side. If you want a pick for, if we don't have a surprise winner, if you want to pick for who's going to make it between Dillon and Reddick into the playoffs, from my perspective, it's going to be Reddick because he's hotter at the moment, and I think he's going to continue that through top 10s for 3 out of the last 5 races for him. So that's very good. Momentum for him coming into this weekend. Chastain, very good on the road courses. The only question is, can he make it up at Watkins Glen? Obviously, a completely different team. 32nd and 27th in his only 2 starts here. One of them was in the Cup Series. One of them was a DNF because of suspension or a suspension issue. But yeah, I think Chastain's been very solid on the road courses. Definitely in store for a personal best at this course this weekend. And
then Briscoe and DiBenedetto at 50 to 1. This is the only long shot for Eric. You've put a couple of bucks on Briscoe, who was 6th at COA and ROA. 6th in 2019 in his lone Xfinity Series start. I put a couple of bucks on DiBenedetto at 50 to 1. And in his last 3 races this year, he's been 9th, 10th, and 11th. And he has one good race at this racetrack. And that was his last race at this racetrack when he finished 6th, I believe.
Absolutely right. And he's been, we now know for sure he's racing for his life next year in the series. So he's got a little bit of extra motivation, as he tends to have at the end of every season. 6th place from a 20th place starting position last time out at Watkins Glen. That's very impressive. He's been very solid on the road courses this year. Should be another top 10 kind of day. It'd be so cool to see him win and get it. He deserves a ride for 2022 and beyond. It's sad to see him fighting every single year for his future. But in order to get out of that rat hole, he's got to find his way to victory lane, doesn't he?
And he's got 3 races that especially Daytona, that could happen for someone like him. And then for all the other long shots, the only 2 I wanted to point out, Suarez has 3 races at Watkins Glen. 2 of them are in the top 5. So he's 80 to 1. And Eric Jones, his history always better than 2021, but 3 top 10s and 2 top 5s and 3 all-time races at Watkins Glen, but he's never able to improve on those numbers based on the team he's with this year. And I will make a bet, and that is that Eric Almirola will not win this week.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. In terms of Suarez, I think it's interesting to note that you might point to the fact that qualifying happened and he was able to start further forward, but his 4th place finish in 2018 came from the 21st starting positions. Don't discount the fact that he's starting deep in the field.
Good fantasy pick then.
Exactly right. That team has been, punching above their weight for sure, being their first time in the series. And then for Eric Jones, He needs his team to back up behind him. He's got the talent and he's got the ability. A road course in a place like Daytona, possibly even some short tracks, those are the times definitely to go with him, because those tracks kind of even out the competition a little bit more, give him a better advantage to be able to take it to the big guys. But I still think he just needs the equipment, which is unfortunate for him.
And he doesn't have a ride yet next year, or does he? He's going to be with the same team, right? Petty next year, I believe.
As far as I know, he is with Petty next year. Yeah.
I don't know what that does. But at least he's got a ride, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is going to wrap it up again as far as the picks. And you can check out all the picks and our fantasy report, as well as our futures, over at racereviewonline.net. Eric will be with me tomorrow to talk IndyCar. So they've been off around the same time as NASCAR. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow morning. But again, CJ and Eric, their top picks are definitely investments. So with Chase Elliott. Your big payout is with Kyle Busch this week, and my big payout would be with Brad Kozlowski. And before I let you go, you must have been happy at what took place on Sunday night.
What was Sunday
Soccer?
night? Remind me. Oh, the Gold Cup. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Gold Cup's interesting because it gives by winning it. It gives you a leg up going into the next World Cup. So it's always good. You get to go.
Yeah, but don't they have to still qualify? See, that's the thing I don't understand is
which they didn't qualify for.
What's that?
They didn't qualify for the World Cup.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. Shouldn't something like that be considered okay, if you win this, you have qualified for the World Cup?
Yeah,
it just sounds. Why not? I don't understand why that's not an automatic qualifier.
CONCACAF, which is the region of the globe that the United States competes in with Canada, Mexico, and a bunch of the others, has the most insane qualification jargon to get through to go to the Olympics, or I'm sorry, to the World Cup. But the fact that the United States, it should be United States and Mexico every single year, plus one other. The fact that you've got such a bad coaching regime, so many changes, you can't pick the right players, you have zero identity on the field, and you have zero infrastructure behind the coaches and behind the team to be able to find the guys that work best together to put your best 11 on the field. We were taking steps in that direction. We haven't seen it since Jurgen Klinsmann left, and I'm not saying that Jurgen Klinsmann was our savior, because he was not. Bob Bradley was fantastic as well at finding these players to be able to come onto the field and play a role. The regime that we have now is going back to the old tricks, that old bag of plays that they had 12, 16, 20 years ago, and they don't work now. And the team's a disaster. It's about time they finally have some success. Too little, too late, in my opinion. They didn't qualify for the World Cup, so what's the point other than experience for hopefully the next generation?
That's crazy. I mean, that's just doesn't the team have some, who's not the team but the country? What happened to that really young player that was supposed to be really good?
Freddie Adu,
yes.
Or are you talking?
Well, he's one of them. I thought there was another one too after that.
Yeah, there's
where are those guys?
Josie Altidore is aging out. So the guys that last World Cup that were looking like call it 2 World Cups ago, the guys that were young 2 World Cups ago that could put the team on their shoulders and carry them forward, they're aging out. I mean, that's 8 years ago now. Soccer is a physical sport. You got to find those young players and you got to bring them in at the right time to be able to learn from those guys, but also not hold them back from progressing. So you've got this constant kind of churn on the international stage, and that's what I was alluding to by the structure behind the coaches and behind the team itself. You need that infrastructure, and U.S. soccer, it's sickening. It's like they're self-sabotaging.
Yeah, it's and they win, but that's, again, it doesn't mean anything.
They should be winning. They should win that one every single time. But yeah, I mean, it should be Mexico and United States in the final every single time. They won it. Great. Use that to build on. You got a lot of problems to go.
When is the World Cup?
next year,
Oh,
isn't
okay. So that's how it is. All right. So you qualify what, 2 years before the World Cup?
it? Basically, yeah, about a year and a half. A
Wow.
year and a half.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a lot can happen in a year and a half.
It might, maybe I'm thrown off because of COVID, but yeah, I mean, qualifying starts almost immediately after the prior World Cup, and then depending on what region you're in, dictates where you end up qualifying. But you usually spend the summer before, or at least the international breaks for the year or the season before the World Cup, doing your friendlies to be able to prepare for the World Cup.
All right. Anyway, I just figured I'd throw that in there.
Yeah. How important it is. Like I had to ask you what it even was because U.S. soccer is so far off
I
the
guess
map.
so. Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that because I actually was paying attention to the. Well, I paid attention to the last few stages of what do they call it? The one that Italy played.
The Euros. That was a
England.
very, very
Yeah.
exciting
Yes,
tournament.
that was good.
You got the two best teams in the final, and England had it in their hands 3 separate times, and they blew it.
Yeah, that was, and it was good to see. It's nice to see England.
Yeah,
because it's surprising that they're not relevant enough. So
agreed.
It's good to see. Hopefully they'll continue.
Yep.
But that's another sport. All right. So next week is another road course. So we'll talk about Indianapolis next week. And
you got that. Yep. Road course, Michigan, Daytona.
Yep. And then Eric will pop in here sometime over the next few weeks. But like I said, Eric and I will talk IndyCar tomorrow. So CJ, appreciate it. Rotowire.com. You're going to have everything out and ready to go on Friday.
Rotowire.com. We will have previews for trucks, Xfinity, and Cup out on Friday, and then we'll have the race recap sometime on Monday.
And don't forget to check out, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, you get a free 10-day subscription, rotowire.com/PrimeSN. And this is what you'll see when you click on that link. It's real easy, and this is everything you get access to. So it's a pretty easy process, and no credit cards are required. So for CJ Radun, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time right here on Prime Sports NASCAR.